Hi there. So today's video is going to be a lottery ticket tumbler. I'm really excited. I've been wanting to do one of these for a while. Actually saw somebody post one of these. It looks so cool. So I had been saving these for a little bit to kind of have some options. I don't really do a lot of scratch off, so it's taken me a while. So I've got a handful. This one's just going to happen to be Monopoly themed. So what I've done is arrange these to get an idea of how I want this on here. I don't want it so straight that it really takes away from anything, but I also don't want it so disjointed that it just doesn't flow. So what I've done is arrange that. You can kind of slide it around and rubber banded it here so I can get an idea. I did one a minute ago and I was not paying attention. So everything ended up so straight. And those were break the banks with one Monopoly one. And you can't even see the Monopoly. I was not paying attention, but I'm going to roll with it because I still have lots of other stuff that I can camouflage it. I can kind of break up the fact that this is primarily break the bank with some of these other old ones. So, these are all losers, but I'm not positive, but you might be able to keep the winning tickets if you had one. I don't know. So what you're going to need is a stack of lotto tickets that you can part with. Obviously not the big one that you need to redeem. Got a little cup of Mod Podge here with a foam brush. Lots of rubber bands you just saw on this cup here. This is what we're going to do here. These are kind of twisted because I've been messing with it. But we're going to use those to lay this down flat so it can dry properly. And then afterwards, I need to mount my blade, but this is a little cup edging tool. I got this from Wicked Shimmer Supply on Etsy. I think that they're the ones that came up with this. I know there's a lot of variations now that WickedShimmerSupply.com. I got it off Etsy. They may have a direct website, or that may route you to their Etsy store. So that's what we're doing. Just regular Mod Podge here, going in here. And we're going to speed it up. Okay, so we've got these all on here. So now comes the rubber bands. You can see right here that that's kind of up a little bit. That's okay. I'm going to cut that right there anyways. So we are just going to go round and round. You want to make sure that this is laying down all these little edges here so that nothing is lifting up. It'll make our tumbler less bulky whenever we go to epoxy it. And we are going to let this dry overnight. As you're putting these on, be aware, because if you see a little spot that's looking like it's trying to pucker up, so to speak, just throw that rubber band a little bit closer. I don't know if y'all can tell, but it should be a little bit brighter right now in this video than my usual videos, because we installed drywall yesterday. And even though this is the exact same lighting as I've always had, and it's in the same spot as usual, I guess having the drywall is just, it brightens up this corner a lot. Definitely is easier for me. I'm over 40 and my eyes just aren't what they used to be. So I'm sure you noticed in the hyperlapse that I threw a couple of rubber bands on here. I just wanted it to hold still while I was doing what I needed to do. And as I'm doing this, I'm just watching to make sure that nothing's lifting. I don't want it lifting on the edges there. And I can always put more rubber bands on way easier than I can do more epoxy to smooth it out. Yeah, so that's what we're gonna do, is just finish rubber banding this, and we'll come back to it tomorrow. I want it to have lots of time to dry. And I'm not worried about these little, you can kind of see the edge of the ticket below it. I mean, that's kind of part of it because of the layered effect. I mean, I didn't want it to look one-dimensional. I wanted it to look three-dimensional, and that's kind of how you achieve it, is being able to tell that something's underneath it. So, yeah. So that's that. Just a couple more, and then we're done here. And we'll be back tomorrow. So we have this nice and dry. It's been here all night. Before I take off these rubber bands, I took off a couple, but I kept catching this. So to make this easier, let's go ahead and trim that. This is also going to make it easier when we use our edging tool to have it down below that ledge there. It'll allow it to sit nice and flush here, because we're going to be doing that rotation movement. So the top doesn't have to be pretty. Just try not to gouge up your rim of your cup too bad. It's kind of hard to avoid metal on metal, but when you're doing metal on metal, you're going to get some kind of scratching, but the least amount, the better. So just trim, 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 and then remove the rubber bands carefully. You don't want to pop that up. This is kind of lifted, but I'm cutting it to right here anyway, so no biggie. And we're about to put Mod Podge over this whole thing again and let it dry. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to trim it now. I've got this already preset to the height that I wanted. You can kind of see right there where my spacing, my gap is right there. That's how we're doing that. So just be very patient while you work your way through this. This is very convenient. It just holds it nice and still for you. Gives you a safe way of holding your blade. I took 2 of the little washers out to get the height that I wanted. I don't have it quite cut through yet. I think I mentioned earlier that I don't plan on putting glitter on this one, so I want a nice smooth edge here. This part's a little tougher because there's up to 3 layers right there in that one tiny little spot right there. For sure 2, but possibly 3 if the little corner is hitting. Almost. Didn't quite break through where it was extra thick right there. There we go. I can fix that in just a minute. But right here where it's extra thick is where it's just taking a little bit extra time. I'm also not scraping it as hard as I probably could, because that metal on metal, ugh, just makes my teeth ache. Good grief, I'll get there someday. Okay, I think I got it. Voila. Okay. Success. Just going to peel off that little bit of Mod Podge right there. I'll get that cleaned up. I have just a teeny bit right here where the way I was holding it, I kind of bent the blade down a little bit. So let's just trim it. Oh, I hate that feeling. That metal on metal just makes me, just puts me on edge, man. There we go. Okay, now I got it off of there. So we're going to do the same thing to the top. And then we are going to Mod Podge all of this again, taking special care. Oops, I missed a spot there. We're going to take special care around here on the edges. I'll tell you why. If that epoxy gets up underneath there, it will give it that wet paper look. And it can ruin your design, your fabric, your pretty much anything at that point. It can really mess things up. And we want to avoid that. So I'm going to do the top part, and then I'm going to Mod Podge the whole thing again. Switching up the brush that I'm using. The other one, it's good for a base layer, but I definitely feel like I can see the brush marks really badly. So on this level, or layer, I mean, I'm not super worried about cleaning up all these little bits of Mod Podge just yet. I want to go just over this edge here. I don't want to go crazy with it because I don't want a lot of Mod Podge showing or having to clean up a lot of Mod Podge. Sorry, I got off camera there. So I'm just going to go kind of around here and seal this. I learned my lesson with the cowhide tumbler, the one that's real cowhide. I haven't quite finished uploading that video just yet because I still need to fine tune just a couple things on it and get that spliced together. But I learned that after I cut my hide, I did not seal this little edge here very good, and it actually ruined it. I was able to camouflage a lot of it with glitter, but I ended up with more glitter on there than what I really, really wanted. Trying to pop some of these bubbles. So I'm just literally going around this edge here. And I'm going to tape it off. I don't usually tape off my rims, but I'm going to tape about 1/8 of an inch on each side after all of this dries. But my priority right now is getting this little spot right here sealed just as neatly as possible, because it will be kind of somewhat visible, even though it's going to dry clear technically. But I want as few streaks as I can manage. Let's actually go ahead and do this part real quick. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do one more layer of Mod Podge. Oh, there's a straight glitter. It would be amazing if I could have the very first cup that's non-glitter that actually has no glitter. We'll see if that actually happens. So I'm going to just finish going around this edge here, after my Mod Podge layer is dry, I'm going to clear coat it with spray paint, just as an added measure of sealing. It's probably overkill, but I'd rather not have to do this over again if I don't have to. And if I can spend that one extra tiny little step, it'll pay for itself in the long run if it keeps me from ruining my cup. All right, so I'm not going to record me doing all of this. That's boring. So we'll be back in just a minute with the completely Mod Podged and dried and clear coated. No, let me back up. Mod Podged and dried. I'm going to tape it where I want it, then clear coat it, and then we'll Mod Podge. But I'll show you that part in just a little bit, but not the rest of me painting this thing with Mod Podge. Again, it's like incredibly boring, and it's literally pretty much watching paint dry. We'll be back. So I've got this taped off. I left just a little bit of the ridge right there because you want to be able to allow your epoxy to touch stainless steel. In a minute, when I remove the tape, I'll show you how to do that, because you've got to remember to do it, otherwise it is a terror. I've come really close to forgetting, and it was a pain. So what we're going to do now is cover this with epoxy, decently thick, but not literally falling off. It's going to take a good little, a good bit of coverage to kind of go over these ridges here. Otherwise you'll have kind of a lumpy cup. So I've got that there, that there. I covered the bottom too because I was clear coating it. So we're just going to do a layer of epoxy all the way around, and make sure you get up and over that edge there. Don't worry about getting it on the tape because we are going to remove that tape in a little while. But that acts as our border, so to speak. So we're going to do this, and then I'll torch it in a little bit to kind of get some of those micro bubbles. If you don't pop your micro bubbles soon enough, they'll cure in there, or the bigger bubbles will rise to the top and make the little divots in there. That fish eyes is another word for it. There's a couple of different things that cause fish eyes, and that's one of them. So I've got my torch over here at the ready, but we're going to give this a few minutes. So let's coat this, and then I'll show you how to take the tape off as well. This has been turning a little over 5 minutes, so I'm going to torch it. Not a lot. There's not a whole lot of air bubbles on there, just a few. You've got to pay special attention right here because we do not want to do any weird things to the tape. So I'm just going to kind of go as controlled as possible. Just enough to blast out as many. Oh, there was I created a little air pocket just now. Hopefully it doesn't get under there too bad, but the way I had that going, it kind of lifted a little bit right there. And I saw some air bubbles coming up, so hopefully I didn't mess that up, but I may have. That's okay. You're gonna make mistakes. No matter how long you've been doing this, you're gonna make mistakes. So we'll come back in a little while. I've got 25 minutes left on my timer, and then I'm going to take that tape off. Timer is about to go off. So this is what we're going to do. I made little flaps right here. I didn't mention that earlier. I'm going to turn this off for a minute. I made little flaps just to make it easy to get a hold of. So just very gently. You don't want to rip it, and I'm pulling it away from it so that any little bits don't like slide onto it, I guess you could say. I don't want it to make a weird little divot. And I've got a little piece right there, but that's okay. I can easily take that off. So I'll throw this away. So after that's cured, I'll slice it and pop that off. Easy peasy. So now, I've got the painter's tape on the bottom. This is going to be fairly easy to remove here with it moving. It doesn't really have any epoxy on it. It was just to keep spray paint off the bottom. So I've got that off of here now. So now let's turn this back off. This one I didn't make the little flap very big, so it's kind of tricky. All right. Slow and steady. You can see it kind of got a little jagged right there. Some people might be able to do this while it's turning, maybe on a slower motor, but not this one. So that right there is where I kind of snipped it with the razor blade so that I could straighten up my edging there. So I'll get that off with the razor blade in just a minute. No biggie, but you can kind of see edging right there. Pretty smooth. Not perfect, but I haven't seen very many that were. Let me get this off of here. I should have paid better attention on this, but it's okay. I don't typically like touching it with my bare hand, but I'm wiping it right back off. Yeah, perfect. So now we're going to let this continue to turn for at least enough hours to set up completely. Maybe 4. It doesn't need very long. And then we'll come back tomorrow and I'll tape just below that line and epoxy one last time. This one I put on pretty thick, so I don't really feel like I'm going to have a lot of bumps right there. So I think it's pretty good. So that's what I'll do. That's really it. It's kind of pointless to show you the next step, just because it's not all that complicated. But I will show you how you can do this right here without having to wait for it to cure. Just really careful right up against there. Slow and steady. If you get in too big of a rush, that's when the bigger mistakes happen. Yeah, and I'll clean that up with acetone or alcohol whenever it's finished all the way. So yeah, that's it. So hopefully this gives you an idea on how you can do that. Obviously, you can do it with other stuff too, but I've been wanting to do the lottery ticket one for a while. So if you have any questions, drop a line. I'll do my best to answer them. I don't know everything, but I'll do my best to answer it. If you like my videos, please consider subscribing and turn on your notifications, because I like to show when I get the subscription box, which I did not do last week because my shed was in complete disarray for the remodel, so to speak. So that's all I have for you tonight. Y'all have a good one.